Hi everyone, happy Friday. I hope you've had a good week. It certainly has been a crazy one in the world. This is Lena Gersa. I am an independent demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, and I am super excited to share with you tonight some simple stamping projects that feature the Painted Poppies stamp set. Now, I often do projects that are a little bit more stepped up and use lots of die cuts and embellishments, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to create beautiful cards with limited supplies. So I thought I would jump on this evening and kind of get back to basics a little bit and show you some ideas for using this stamp set. So the two stamp sets that I'm going to be focusing on are Painted Poppies. This is the one that I'm going to pull all of our images from. And then I also use the Perfectly Framed stamp set for my sentiments. Now I like this one because it actually does have some frames around the sentiments, which you can actually stamp and cut out with your snips if you want to add an extra layer, or can stamp directly on your card and still have it stand out because of the frame. Hi Martine, how are you? Who else is with me? Let me just get my iPad going here and see if I can see who's watching with me tonight. Let's see. Come on. There I am. All right, let's see who's out there. So Martine is here, Claire is here. Hi Claire. Hi Heather, how are you? All right, so as I said, these are the two stamp sets we're going to be focusing on. I'll show you quickly where to find them in our catalog. So the Painted Poppies stamp set is part of the beautiful Peaceful Poppies suite in the catalog. Now, I did a bunch of gorgeous stepped up projects this week that featured some of the dies from this suite, but I'm going to focus just on the stamp set tonight. So this is Painted Poppies. It's on page 26 of the January to June mini catalog. It's $31 here in Canada. Okay. Hi, Krista. Hi, Lee. How are you? Hi, Gail. Hi, Wendy. Wow, you guys have nothing else to do on a Friday night. It's amazing. We're all looking for something to do besides binge watch Netflix. So I'm glad you're spending part of your evening with me. All right, so the sentiment set that I was talking about is called Perfectly Framed. It's found on page 31 of the January to June mini, and it is only $20 here in Canada. So you can get both of these sets for under $60 and create some beautiful cards. So let's get to it. I'm going to go right to basics. So I'm going to show you how to cut your cardstock, because I always have all my cardstock pre-cut, and I thought that might be a good idea to show people actually how to cut a card base. So we're going to go right to basics. So we're going to start with this fun card. And for that, I'm going to bring in my trimmer. So this is my Stampin' Trimmer. And I'm going to cut a card base. So here is an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. Hi, Julie. How are you doing? And I'm going to create two card bases with it. So from one piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, you can get two card bases. So the first thing I'm going to do is insert my cardstock. I'll just move this down a little bit so you can see, to 4 1/4. Okay, so that's the halfway mark on the 8.5 by 8.5 inch side. Okay, so I'm going to score with my scoring blade all the way across. Okay, so you can see there's a score line there now. Then I'm going to rotate 90 degrees, and I'm going to slide my cardstock over to 5.5 inches and cut with my cutting blade. And you're going to see that just like that, I have two ready-made card bases. Okay, and we'll use both of these tonight. So that is the first thing that I need. Then I need to cut my layer that we're going to stamp on. Hi, Anne. How are you? So we are going to cut a 4 by 5 1/4 inch layer. So again, I'm going to put my white cardstock in up to the 4 inch mark and cut. And then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to cut it 5.5. And I'm going to cut 2 of these because I'm going to need more. Actually, I might even cut all 4 because I'm going to need them for the other projects. Whoops, 5 1/4. Did I do that at 5 1/4? Nope, I did not. 5 1/4. Went a little too far on that one. There we go. So now I have a piece of white cardstock that is 5 1/4 by 4. Okay, so let's get that out of the way and we will get right to some stamping. So I'm going to use one of my pieces of white cardstock, and I'm going to use a palette that uses 3 complementary colors. Okay, so I have Daffodil Delight, I have Mango Melody, and Poppy Parade. All right, so those are my 3 colors, and I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is the Daffodil Delight. And to create my background, I am going to use this sort of smudgy stamp. It's this one here. All right. We're going to do a whole bunch of layering with that stamp. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp across this edge with my Daffodil Delight. And I'm not worrying about the fact that it's kind of mottled and it doesn't look quite as pretty as I might like it to. I'm just going to layer this image several times across here until I get something that I'm happy with. Okay, just like that. So simple. Fill in some of those white spots there where I missed. There we go. So easy, right? Then I'm going to change to my next color, which is Mango Melody. And the nice thing about going from light to dark is that I don't have to clean my stamp in between, which is an extra bonus. So now I'm going to come in with the mango. I'm going to make sure that I overlap the crushed curry a little bit. My mango is looking a little bit on the dry side. So again, I am just going to rotate that stamp and stamp several times until I get the depth of color that I want. Okay, and I don't like that little white spot there, so we're going to fill that in. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with my Poppy Parade. So we'll bring that one in. And we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to come along the other edge with the Poppy Parade. Now this one I just re-inked, so it is really vibrant, which is okay. And you'll see as I layer, I get really nice texture. Okay, just like that. Isn't that beautiful? All right, so now I'm gonna add just a little bit more texture. Actually, I'm gonna go back to the Daffodil Delight. I'm gonna add some more texture with the spatter stamp. So this one is another stamp that's in the stamp set. And I'm gonna come in and go across, whoopsie, with that spatter stamp in the same color. So this is the Daffodil Delight, okay? And then I'm gonna bring in my Mango Melody. Hi Julie, how are you doing? Okay, so we'll come across with the mango. And you'll notice that I'm rotating my stamp. I'm not stamping it all the same direction each time. We want it to look random. We don't want it to look sort of like it's a pattern. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in with my Poppy Parade and just add that extra bit. Now, isn't that pretty just as it is? I love it. I love it. Now, though, we're going to add our beautiful poppy images. So for that, I'm going to bring in my Memento black ink. It doesn't need to be Memento. It could be any black ink, but I just happen to like Memento. So that is what I will use. And I'm first going to stamp with the larger poppy. So there are two poppy images in the set. One's kind of a profile and the other one's sort of straight on. So I'm starting with the straight on one. And I'm going to stamp several times all over. Isn't that pretty? Just like that. I love it. So pretty. It's so fun to layer stamped images. It really is. And I'm not worrying about the fact that these are overlapping, okay, at all. It in fact adds interest to my background. Now I'm coming in with my sort of profile poppy. And I'm filling in some of the spaces here. Isn't that cool? Oh, let's just add a little bit down here. And we're gonna add a little bit up here. Is that not a cool background? I love that background. So much fun. Hey sister, how are you doing? How are things in VA? All right, so that's it for that. We're gonna set that aside because there's a lot of ink on there and it needs to dry a little bit, okay? And we're gonna work on this little sentiment element here. So for that, I've already gone ahead and cut the cardstock ahead of time. Let me just find it in my pile of goodies here. So I have a piece of white cardstock that is 2 inches by 1.5. Okay, hi Julie, how are you? 2 inches by 1.5, and then this one is 2 1/8 by 1 3/8. So when they layer, we're gonna have a nice little border there. Okay, so this I just cut with my paper trimmer. No fancy equipment required. And for this one, I'm going to use the You Make Me Happy sentiment. So all of these cards are feel-good cards because we all need that right now, right? After a week of really, really, really not good news. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp You Make Me Happy, just like that. Then I'm going to bring my Poppy Parade ink back. And thanks. I'm glad you like it, Michelle. All right, so I'm going to bring that back. I'm going to stamp it off, and then I'm going to add just a little titch of it down in the corner there. Okay. Then I'm going to bring back my full large poppy and ink that up, and we're going to add just a little bit of it peeking on at the bottom of our sentiment panel there. Okay. All right. Now it's just a matter of gluing this baby together. So first we're going to layer these two. So I'm going to use your favorite color, mine too. Hi Deb, how are ya? How are things in Calgary? I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. So we're going to layer just with a little bit of liquid glue. So this is our Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. Awesome glue for pretty much anything. It is super strong. And then we are going to add just a cardstock element. So I wanted to, again, show you how you could create beautiful cards without using a whole bunch of embellishment. So normally the real Lena would like to use lots of ribbon on here and have a pretty little bow, but I wanted to really pare it down and show you how you can make beautiful cards with very few supplies. So this is just a strip of black cardstock. It is cut to a 1/2 inch wide. I've cut it a little bit longer than my panel so that I can trim it off, so I can make sure that it runs the full length. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little strip of glue across there. And then this is going to go on about probably an inch, maybe 1.25 inches up from the bottom. Let's do an inch and see how that looks. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so we're going to stick that down, and then I'm going to flip this over and trim off my excess cardstock here. So this black strip ends up being 5.25 inches once it's trimmed. Okay, and then we're going to add our little sentiment panel. So I am going to pop this up with some dimensionals. It's not necessary. If you don't have Stampin' Dimensionals, you could totally just glue it flat. There is nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to add just a little bit of dimension to my card here. And we'll get rid of these backings, and we'll pop this on. And again, we want to try and get it straight. It's going to go on about, I don't know, 1/2 to 3/4 inch from the right edge. And then we're going to take one of those pretty Poppy Parade card bases that we cut. We're going to fold in half along the score line. If I can find my bone folder. Aren't these sentiments beautiful, Martine? We all need some beauty in our lives right now. I have been feeling it this week, and I am so happy to do something that makes me happy, and I hope you guys enjoy. So we're going to focus on some pretty cards for a little while anyway. So I'm adding my glue to the back of my panel, and I'm just going to stick that right down onto my card, just like that. Isn't that pretty? Now, on my sample, I did bring in my Wink of Stella. I had to do it. I couldn't resist. I know I'm supposed to be using limited supplies. And honestly, this is like a basic, crucial must-have in every craft room, people. If you don't have one of these, what have you been waiting for? You need to get one, okay? So I'm going to show you my flicky technique. And that's the technical name. So I am going to make sure I have some ink in the barrel of my brush here. And then I'm just going to take and flick across my card. And it's going to add beautiful shimmer to my card and make it shine and sparkle. I'm not sure how well that shows up on the camera, but there you go. All right. So number 1 done, super fast and easy, but so pretty. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let me get some stuff out of the way here. We're going to move on to this one. Similar effect. I changed up my color scheme a little bit, and I wanted my sort of pretty stamped background to show more on this one. So for this one, I am using, make sure I get the right ink pads here. I have a few of them sitting on my desk right now. We are using these 3 colors: Daffodil Delight, Poppy Parade, and Granny Apple Green. Okay, thanks Martine. I think it's pretty too. Isn't it nice that we can make beautiful things with not a lot of supplies? We don't have to spend $300 to make a card. Okay, so we're going to focus on these 3 colors for this one, and I am just going to quickly clean this stamp because I am going to use it in my Daffodil Delight ink pad, and we want to make sure we're not cross-contaminating. And I'm going to take another one of those Whisper White panels that we cut earlier, and we're going to get right to it. Okay, so here we go with the Daffodil Delight. So again, I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to come across here, creating my background. And again, you want to make sure you're rotating, because you don't want to have, see how there's sort of a lighter spot? You don't want to have that in the same spot every time, right? You want to make sure that it looks random and then it's well filled in. Okay, so there is my yellow, my Daffodil Delight. And then I'm going to come in with some Poppy Parade, and we'll come across the middle. Just like that. And again, the more you layer this, the more texture you get, because you get the edges of the stamp, which tend to take on more ink, and you just get a really cool textured effect. It almost looks like crumpled tissue paper to me. Okay, so there is the Poppy Parade. And finally, I'm going to clean my stamp, because I do not want to get Poppy Parade ink in my Granny Apple Green ink pad. That would be disastrous. So we'll pull in the Granny Apple Green, and we're going to come across the bottom with the Granny Apple. Ooh, this one's getting a little on the dry side. We're going to have to show it some re-inker love after I'm done here. So again, you're just adding layers and texture. Every time you stamp, you want to re-ink, okay? Especially when you're stamping along the edge. If you stamp off the edge, you're going to end up with a line where the cardstock ended on your stamp when you go to, if you restamp it again, okay? But isn't that just a pretty, pretty background? I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so this time we are going to stamp with this sort of, I think this is a background stamp. It's really pretty. It's like a field of poppies. And we are going to stamp all the way across the background that we've done here. So when I have a large stamp, I like to take my ink pad right to the stamp rather than the other way around. That way I can make sure I'm not missing part of the stamped image, so make sure I'm covering the whole thing. And I want to stamp so that the base of my stems are kind of just where the green transitions from the red. Okay, just kind of across like that. And again, we'll ink up. Hi Jamie, how are you? It is a great easy background. Yes, I love that stamp. I love smudgy, splattery stamps because there are so many possibilities with them. So many things you can do. Okay, there you go. Isn't that pretty? Such a pretty scene, and so easy, just with ink and stamps. All right, now we are going to stamp this beautiful sentiment, and I don't think there's anything more appropriate for where we are in the world right now. It says, together we can get through anything. So we are going to stamp this just at the bottom on the green, and we're going to stamp it in the black. So whatever black you have will work. And I want to make sure this is well inked, and I want to try and get this straight. So here we go. This is where we all hold our breath, and we hope and pray that Lena stamps this straight while not looking directly down. Here we go. Hold your breath. Cross your fingers. Oh, it's a little crooked, but it's not bad. It's not too bad. There we go. All right. Super pretty. And then we're going to add just a little bit of an element. We could leave it like that, but I wanted to sort of highlight that sentiment a little bit. So here, this is just a 1/4 inch wide strip of black cardstock. So this is a great way to use up your scraps, right? To add just little elements to your cards that just add highlights. So instead of using ribbon, you can use cardstock to add interest to your cards. So we're going to glue a little bit here, and then we're going to glue a little bit on this side. Okay, so we're going to add just a bit of Tombow on one end. And now the trick here is to do this so that they are about the same height on both sides. So I'm using my grid paper to help. I'm going to just trim this as a rough cut right now. I will fix that up in a minute. And then I'm going to use the other end that I cut with my trimmer that I know is straight. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And it's going to go right about there. That looks pretty darn close. And again, I'm just going to do a rough cut on this. Okay, and then just flip this over and we'll trim off the excess like that. Okay, and that way it just highlights that beautiful sentiment and adds a little bit of interest to our card. Okay, now for this one, I need a basic black cardstock. So I have a full sheet here. So we're gonna, again, cut ourselves a base. So I'm gonna bring my trimmer back, and our cardstock is gonna go in at 4 1/4. Okay, this is the 8.5 inch edge, and we're gonna score with our scoring blade. Then I'm gonna rotate 90 degrees and put it in at 5 1/2 and cut, and voila, I have 2 beautiful card bases ready to go. So we'll save one because we're gonna need it later, and we'll fold this guy in half and crisp it up and add a little bit of glue. And stick her down. Okay, just like that. So easy. Now I was tempted to add more Wink of Stella to this. I won't. Feel free to add it if you would like. I will not be offended if you choose to add more Wink of Stella. Okay, so there is card number 2. How easy was that? Super easy is how easy. All right, moving on. Here we go with number 3. So this one, we're only using 2 ink colors to create our background. We're going to use the same technique. This time I am using, let me just bring in the correct colors of ink here. We're using Poppy Parade and Mossy Meadow for this one. Okay, I wanted it to be a little bit more somber. This one I think would make a beautiful sympathy card if you needed one. You could swap out your the sentiment there and create a really lovely sympathy card. Now I need to cut some more white cardstock for our front panel. So we're gonna do that right now. Do you remember how wide I put it, or where I put it in at? It was 4 inches. So 4 inches wide. Hi Karen, how are you? How are things? And then 5 1/4 and 5 1/4 again. And that's gonna give us 2 Whisper White panels to stamp on. All right, so this card is a vertical orientation, a portrait orientation. So we are going to have our cardstock turned in a portrait rotation. And then I'm going to take, I have this piece of cardstock here. This is 3 and, I got to measure 3 1/4, 3 1/4 by 2. Okay, 3 1/4 by 2. So I'm going to put this on to the front of my card. Not quite in the middle, a little bit below the middle. And I'm actually going to use just a hint, and I mean a hint, of snail to tack this in place. Okay, because I don't want it to move as I'm stamping. Actually, I'm not doing that yet. What am I doing? I need to stamp my background first. We're going to do that. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, we're going to pull out our Poppy Parade. That was almost a disaster, you guys. I averted a disaster just now. All right, let me clean that up. And let's go. All right, so here we go, Poppy Parade. And I'm just gonna stamp across the top half of this one, okay? So this is a very much smaller piece of cardstock, so it's gonna happen quite a bit faster than the other one did. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in with my Mossy Meadow after I clean my stamp, of course, because we do not want Poppy Parade in the Mossy Meadow. And we will pull that out. And then we're going to add some Mossy Meadow across the bottom. Now this one is really dry. This needs some serious love, this one. So we'll turn this, and you'll see that by turning the stamp, I get additional texture, okay? And again, the more you turn the stamp and the more times you stamp, the more interesting your background becomes, okay? All right, next we are going to tack this down on our white piece. All right, so bringing back my white panel, and I'm going to stick this on just tacked in place. You could use snail for this. In fact, snail would be better. It's less permanent. We're going to just tack this in place just temporarily for a minute. Okay, make sure it's centered there. Okay, then I'm going to bring in that beautiful Field of Poppies background stamp again, and I'm going to ink up my stamp. Hi Irene, how are things in Woodstock? I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp right across this panel. Okay, so I'm stamping right across. Don't worry about the fact there's a little gap there. We're going to hide that in a minute, and then I'm going to come across the other side as well, just like that. Isn't that pretty? Not pretty yet. It'll be prettier. Give me a minute. All right, so now we're going to pull this off. Come on. There we go. And here I have a piece of black cardstock that is cut 1/8 of an inch larger. So this was 3.5. This one was 3.5. So this is 3 3/8 by 2 1/8. Okay, and you're going to see when I layer that, we're going to have a lovely little border all the way around. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue, and we're going to pop this on just like that. Okay, then I'm going to bring back my white piece, and I'm going to pop this up, and you're going to see, just remember those little gaps that we had? By adding that layer in behind the black layer, it covers up the fact that there was a gap. Okay, so that's a great way, a little tip for hiding whenever you're trying to stamp across layers. Okay, all right, so let's add some dimensionals again, and we'll get rid of our backings, and we'll pop this on. So again, I'm trying to match up my poppies here, right? I'm kind of looking at the background ones and the ones that are on the focal point here. Get that on straight, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to stamp my Lots of Love. All right, so I'm going to bring in again my black ink pad. We're going to ink that up, and we're going to stamp it. And again, I got to move this down. Sorry, you guys. I need to be able to see where I'm stamping, and we're going to hope and pray that this is semi-straight. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Okay, so you could totally leave your card like this. It is quite lovely, just like this. However, I decided to add a little bit of extra texture. Can you see that on there? I added a little bit of extra texture here. And I did that by using the trimming blade on my Stampin' Trimmer. Now, the trick with this is you have to do it upside down. All right, so I'm going to start at about, we're going to try 1.25 inches. Nope, we're going to try 1 inch. We're going to do 1 score line at 1 inch. So I put my cardstock in up to 1 inch, and we're going to score, and then look at it. That's rather pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch pass. I'm now at 1 1/8, and score. And look at that. And then we're going to go 1 1/4. Isn't that pretty? Really, really simple way to add really subtle texture to a card. Isn't that pretty? And we're going to add a couple at the bottom. So I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to start, I think, let's try 3/4 of an inch. See how that looks. Yep, that works. 3/4 of an inch. And then we're going to go, we want to go downwards. We're going to go down 1/8. So now we're at 3, sorry, what are we at? Sorry, we were at 1/2 inch. Now we are at 3/8. Oh, and I went too far. That was 3/8. Okay, hang on. What did I do here? That was 3/4. Then I went to, I should have gone to 5/8. That's what I should have done. So we're going to do 5/8. Easy peasy. There we go. And you see how there's an extra line there? I could add an extra one, but I kind of like that they're unevenly spaced. I kind of like that texture. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Karen. Yeah, it is crazy days in this world. I think everywhere we're all on sort of living in an altered reality these days. Okay, now again, I'm going to come in and do a little flicky flicky with my winky winky and add a little bit of sparkle to this. Not too much, just a little bit of subtle shimmer. Okay, and then we're going to glue that onto one of our black card bases. So remember how we were we used it in a landscape orientation for the last card? Well, all we're going to do is rotate it to a portrait orientation. So we're going to fold along our score line. Okay, and then we're going to just glue that right on. You like that idea, Lee? Which one? Scoring with adding texture by using score lines? Is that the one you're talking about, or my flicky flicky winky winky technique? Which one do you like? I like both, to be honest, but okay, so we'll stick that one on, and there is card number 3. So pretty. Hi Krista, how are you? How are you doing? How are things in Breslau? Hubby came home from work tonight, and he's not going back now till Tuesday. They're on half shifts now. for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what happens there. All right, moving on. We're going to work on this card next, only because I use the same 2 colors and I don't have to clean my stamp. So actually I do, because I have to use the Poppy Parade. But this one, I'm going to get a lighter effect by stamping off before I stamp my on my cardstock. Okay, so here we go with another piece of Whisper White. I'm going to clean my stamp again. Make sure that that is good and scrubbed. And then I'm going to bring in my Poppy Parade. So this time I want to get a softer look on my background. So I'm going to ink my stamp and then I'm going to stamp off. Now, just a tip for when you are stamping off. When you are stamping off, I've seen some people do a stamp off like this. The problem with that is you're not going to, actually that's actually a pretty good one. But you want to make sure when you stamp off that you get a good quality image on your original stamped image, so that you know you're going to get a good quality image with your stamped off one as well. Okay, if you don't get a full nice quality image when you're stamping off, like on your grid paper, when you stamp on your cardstock, it's not going to look so great. Okay, so I'm being a little bit less aggressive with my stamp. I'm not overlapping as much. Okay, I want it to be a little bit subtler in the background. So there's the Poppy Parade. They are beautiful sentiments. Yes, they are for sure. Okay, so then I'm going to bring in my Mossy Meadow again. Clean my stamp. And we're going to do the same thing with the Mossy Meadow. Now this one, I may not need to stamp off because it's pretty, well, no, we'll stamp off just to be consistent. This is a pretty dry pad, so I'm not getting a ton of ink initially anyway, but we're going to come across, stamping off in the same way, all the way across. And I'm just going to fill in those little gaps at the bottom there. Okay, just really subtle on this one. And part of that is because we're going to add some extra splatter texture in a minute. So to stamp the poppies, we're using this stamp this time, a different one from the same Painted Poppy set. And again, I'm going to bring in my black ink. Oh, you like the score lines, eh, Lee? Yeah, I had forgotten that technique, and then I was making these cards, and I'm like, needs a little something, but what can I do? I don't have a big shot. I was trying to pretend I didn't have a big shot. And how could I add texture? And that's a great way to add texture without the need for a big shot. Okay, so I am inking up my poppy stamp in black ink, and I want to make sure that as I'm stamping these, I am varying the heights. Okay, I don't want them all to be the same height all the way across. And I do want to make sure that I get them well inked. Okay, so I'm getting a nice vibrant black against that background. All right. Okay, now I'm going to bring back the larger spatter stamp, and I'm going to stamp across the green, the Mossy Meadow, with the spatter stamp to add additional texture. Okay, so I'm just going to come across here. This time I'm stamping full strength. Okay, and you're going to see it's going to add some nice texture along the bottom there. And then I'm going to come in. There's also a smaller spatter stamp in this stamp set. Whoop, not with green. I'm going to... That was almost a disaster again. My goodness, you guys. I am batting 1,000 tonight. All right, so we are going to pull in the Poppy Parade. And with that small spatter, I'm stamping over top of each one of the blossoms here. Just, again, add some extra color and texture to the blossoms on that. Isn't that pretty? I love it, I love it, I love it. Okay, next we are going to stamp our sentiment, and this one just says, "You are wonderful." And I think I may send this to some healthcare professionals that I know, because, you know, they need all the love we can give them right now. All right, so we're going to stamp "You are wonderful" just in the top corner here. And again, I'm going to hope and pray this is straight. That's not too bad. Isn't that pretty? So simple and so pretty. All right, so I'm going to bring back one of those Poppy Parade card bases that we cut. Fold it in half along my score line. And again, we're going to just glue that panel onto the front of our card. So easy. So for those of us that say we don't have enough time to make cards, look at how fast and easy it was to make these. Okay, you do not need hours and hours to make a card. These ones you can whip up in less than 10 minutes. Super easy. Okay, so that is number 4. Number 4, you're getting bonus cards tonight, you guys, and we're going to do a 5th one, so don't go anywhere. All right, here is number 5. And I think this is my favorite because I love all the different elements in it. And I used a whole bunch of different stamps from the set. So here we go. We got to cut one more. Oh, did I bring? Oh, yeah, I did. Got to cut one more Whisper White panel. So again, I'll bring back my trimmer, slide my cardstock into 4 inches, and cut, and then rotate, and into 5 1/4. And we're good to go. All right. So this time we're going to start with that sort of smudgy stamp, and we are going to stamp it just sparingly, sort of randomly across the front of the card. And again, I'm going to stamp off each time. Okay, so I'm bringing in my Poppy Parade again. Actually, did I? Yeah, I did. I was second guessing myself there for a second. So again, I'm going to stamp off, and I am going to add just a few of these across the front of my panel here. And again, I want to rotate them. I don't want them all to be the same. And the really important thing whenever you're doing this kind of collage look is to make sure that you are going off the edge of your cardstock. Okay, this does not look as effective and it does not look good if you keep everything on the page. It has to be touching or extending off the edge. Okay, that's my little design tip for you. Okay, so I'm going to bring back my, this is the wrong stamp, I'm going to bring back my sort of profile poppy, and I'm going to ink it up in the black, and I'm just going to center the poppy on each one of those little smudgies there. And again, keep in mind it's okay to go off the edge of the page. Just like that. Let's turn this one this way, just to be different. Again, when you're doing random, you want it to look as random as you can, right? You don't want it to look planned. There we go. Okay. All right. Now I am going to bring in my leaf stamp. So this is the first time we're using this one. This is, again, from the same stamp set. And I'm going to bring in some old olive ink just to change up the color scheme a little bit. You could totally do this in one of the other greens, right? If you have a limited number of ink colors, any green will work. Right? Any red will work. You don't necessarily have to use the same colors I'm using. So I'm going to stamp a few random leaves to fill in some of the spaces between my poppies. And again, I want to make sure I'm going off the edge and that I'm rotating my stamp as I stamp. I don't want them all to go the same direction. We're going to add this guy like that. I think that looks pretty good. And then we're going to use the same ink color. I'm going to clean my little small spatter stamp, clean that up, and we're going to come back in with that stamp, and we're going to stamp over top of those leaves, okay, just to add some texture and fill in a bit of color. So just all over, filling in each one of those little guys, just like that, okay. And then we are going to bring back our large spatter stamp after I clean it, of course. Give that a quick scrub. Ooh, I need to clean my chamois. There we go. And I'm going to bring in some Pool Party ink. So again, I just wanted to change up the color scheme for this last one. You absolutely could use any color for the background, okay? It does not have to be Pool Party. You want to use something light. And I'm going to ink up my spatter, and I'm going to stamp off and then stamp across my page. Oh, maybe I did it full strength. Sure, let's do it full strength. Why the heck not? We'll do some full strength and then we'll do some stamped off. How's that? We'll just add a few of these guys. And then I'm going to add some stamped off ones as well, just to fill in a little bit more of the white. I don't want it to be too stark. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Oh, so pretty. So pretty. All right, now I'm going to bring back my Wink of Stella because, you know, me and my Wink. And this time, instead of spattering, I'm actually going to add just a little bit of color to each one of my poppies. Now, what you're going to see is that the texture of the stamped image changes a little bit because the Wink is going to make that ink run just a little bit. Okay, and that's okay. I kind of liked that. It again adds just a different texture onto the card. So we're basically purposely smudging and smearing some of that ink. Okay, and I'm not being careful. Okay, again, this needs to look abstract and random, right? So I'm not trying to stay inside the lines and worry about making sure that, you know, I'm hitting everything evenly. I'm just adding really subtle texture. Can you see that? All right, now the thing is, your ink is gonna pick up some of that color, so you wanna make sure you clean it so that it doesn't end up on your next card. All right. Okay, now we need a little strip of Whisper White, and I just happen to have one. Remember those Whisper White panels that we cut? Well, this is what's left when you cut 4 Whisper White, 4 by 5¼ inch panels from a sheet of cardstock. You get these 1/2 inch strips. And these strips are so useful. Do not ever throw these out, okay? So we are going to, first of all, cut this. Actually, we don't even need to worry about cutting it. We're just gonna stamp and then we'll trim it with our scissors. So I'm gonna bring back my Lots of Love stamp and ink it up with the black ink. And I'm just gonna stamp it. And again, I'm gonna move this a little closer. I hope you guys can still see it so that I can attempt to get it actually on the cardstock. Oh, it's a little high. Let's try again. We're gonna try the other end. This is not as easy as it looks, people. Honest. There we go. That's better. Okay. So now we're going to glue this onto our strip. Okay. And you can decide where you want your Lots of Love to be. It could be more towards the center. I kind of did it towards one end. So I'm going to just add a little bit of glue along that strip. And we're going to pop this right onto the front of the card. And I'm going to extend off the edge. I'm going to use again my grid paper to make sure I'm getting this on straight. We're going to put it right about there. Okay. And then I'm going to take my snips. Oh, I just glued it to my grid paper. I'm going to take my snips and trim it off. And same thing on this end. All right. And then this time I used a smoky slate card base. So this was one I already had cut, so I figured I may as well use it. You guys now know how to cut card bases, so we're gonna fold this in half and glue this guy right onto that card base. Just like that. So simple. Okay, there you go. Isn't that pretty? Now let me bring them all back so you can see them all together one more time. Sorry about my messy background here. Nobody said I was a neat freak, believe me. I am not a neat freak, not even a little, especially when I'm crafting. All right, there we go. There are your 5 projects. How quick and easy were those? So quick and easy is the answer. Now, I have a whole bunch of these that I've made up. So here's what I want to do. I would like you guys in the comments to please leave me the name of someone that you think needs a pick-me-up at this really, really bizarre, lousy, awful time in the history of the world. So even if it's yourself, if you need a pick-me-up, I would love to send you a card to pick you up. Okay, so if you could leave me a name in a comment, or if you want to direct message me, you absolutely can. Give me a name and then I will contact you and get their mailing address, and I will happily send out cards both in Canada and the US. I'm sorry, Australia, I cannot afford postage to Australia right now, but absolutely anywhere in North America, I would love to send some encouragement cards out. Okay, so these ones will go out to anyone that you guys identify as needing a little something to pick them up. Okay? All right, everyone. Thanks for spending part of your Friday with me. I hope you have a good weekend. Try turning off the news for a while and just enjoy being with your loved ones. Okay? And I will see you again next week on Tuesday for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.